For Thursday, the 13th of January, I'm Randy Kure coming at you live via Facebook. Hope you are doing well and keeping safe. On today's episode, Toronto FC has a new sheriff in town, along with Bob Bradley, signing top international striker Lorenzo Insigne. What will Tim Hortons Field look like when Canada's men's national team take on the U.S., with Canada facing some strict crowd restrictions, albeit in indoor facilities? In rapid fire, known as Big Deal, No Big Deal, Becky Hammon is heading to the bright lights of Vegas for the WNBA Aces, and thumbs down in a literal sense to from Knicks forward Julius Randle. Our top story is some significant storylines, and for the most part having to do with some star athletes and their stances regarding COVID-19. Here to join me, the voice of the main supporter group for Toronto FC from the Red Patch Boys podcast, Ben McClellan joins me. Ben, how are you?
Doing well. Appreciate having me back. I guess that means I passed the first time.
Oh, you passed with flying colors, and always earning 100% is contributor to this podcast, Tony Antoniou. Hi, Tony. How are you?
I'm good. You made me so nervous I dropped my pen. I'm good. How are you? I'm surprised I'm back on. I'm surprised I'm back on the podcast.
No,
you know what? Talk.
Yeah, are you kidding? No. Guys, thank you so much for joining me. And hey, we had decided to get together for a couple of weeks and thought we were going to lead with one angle, but these days, who can get away from sports without talking about the coronavirus and everything that comes with it? Seeing star athletes, guys, getting into personal or legal trouble is not really uncommon, but such in life in 2022, coronavirus has always bringing a dark cloud. Lately, some star athletes in various sports has gotten into some hot water, whether it is Antoniou Brown from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. You think of Evander Kane from the San Jose Sharks, and the ongoing saga that is happening with tennis legend Novak Djokovic. Might as well start with Evander Kane first. And, Kane is a guy who has been unceremoniously kicked out of now 3 teams, of course, from Winnipeg to Buffalo, and now just recently with San Jose. There seems to be a number of teams who are interested still in Kane's services. With his apparent forging of a vaccination status card as well. Ben, I'd love to start with you. If you were a general manager of an NHL team, would you take a flyer on a guy like Evander Kane?
A flyer, yes. I certainly don't see where you can go wrong in terms of at least starting him off with your AHL affiliate, much like the Bruins did with Tuukka Rask. Obviously, 2 different scenarios between Rask and Kane. There's certainly no hurt in that. However, in terms of going and throwing the bag at him right away and expecting him to pick up big minutes with an NHL team right off the bat, probably not. But I certainly don't see how it could hurt to at least, maybe put him in the AHL for a little bit and then maybe give him a small role with an NHL club. But the skill's certainly there for Evander Kane as a player. It's just all the other stuff off the ice.
Obviously the 3 of us weren't in the Winnipeg Jets locker room, especially when the troubles with Kane first started. Apparently it just got to the point where his then teammates threw his what I'm assuming is an expensive suit in the shower. And if that was one way of telling him to get lost, I mean, I don't know of a better way to do so. Tony, one team apparently who is interested in Kane's services is the Edmonton Oilers. Their GM, Ken Holland, said the following: when the situation doesn't work out somewhere else, to give someone an opportunity? Do I believe in it? And Holland said, yes. Do you agree with Holland? I guess more so specifically in with regards to Evander Kane, because it's not so much that he's on a second chance now, right?
I think he's at about chance number 8, to be honest with you. Me personally, I wouldn't do it. Now, Kenny Holland, who knows? He might not want to be doing it, but maybe the owners in one ear saying, let's take a flyer because we're struggling right now. We've had a month of absolute putrid hockey. We're losing. I think we're pretty much out of a playoff spot. It could be the star player in the other ear saying, you know, whatever it takes, whatever it takes. I would hope my team doesn't take a flyer on him, because I think accountability has to come in play eventually when it comes to these guys, right? It can't be just about skill. What is he doing to learn from his mistakes? And to me, it's clearly nothing. And skill has taken him all the way here. He's been paid very well, but for me, it's not a risk worth taking anymore. I think what Evander Kane needs is some kind of evaluation. And I don't know if it's a mental one or if it's an accountability course, if those things like exist, but that's the route I would take, because I think you're enabling his behavior again. If you end up bringing him back, what has he learned? That's 3 franchises now that he has left unceremoniously on his fault. And they've all paid him handsomely too, right? I mean, they've all paid him really good money for what, and it's not like he's impacted any of the success on the ice too. It's like, is there any playoff success with Evander Kane on your hockey team? I would pray that the Pittsburgh Penguins wouldn't even think about doing something like that.
Well, if we're talking playoff success with Evander Kane on your hockey team, as a Buffalo Sabres fan, I can confirm there's none there.
Well, I mean, as a Leafs fan, well, I guess it's nice to have 3 different guys with 3 different affiliations to which team you support. But I honestly thought, I mean, you take a look at, if I was to mention Evander Kane and an Instagram post, I think the 3 of us know what exactly I'm talking about. That infamous quote unquote post of him in Vegas with a stack of dollar bills. And honestly, for a guy who does like to see freedom of expression, I didn't think it was a big deal. That said, it appears that he has domestic issues. It appears that he lied about his vaccination status. 3 teams can't be wrong about, this guy's character or lack thereof. But, Ben, I think about a guy like Nazem Kadri, who had apparently he had some difficulties as well adjusting to public life or whatever the situation is, and now he's just flourishing with the Avalanche. Is it possible that he could actually get knocked some sense? And is it possible that Evander Kane could be a valued commodity with whoever team he signs for?
Yeah, I mean, it's real tough just because, like Tony mentioned, we're on, what chance at this point? It kind of seems like everywhere he's gone, it maybe starts off okay. But the further in his tenure he gets with whatever club, it kind of slides downhill. So I don't know. I don't know if you can knock sense into him at this point in his career, right? Like the battle's, towards its end, probably. The challenges have been faced and things have certainly gone sideways for him. I mean, if you're comparing it to Kadri, I don't think it was ever as severe as what Kane's going through. You had his wife go to her Instagram to discuss, what might be happening in that relationship. And then you had the bankruptcy thing, you had the scandal in Vegas during the playoffs. It's just problem after problem, it seems. So I don't know if you can exactly, a guy in that point in his career, I'm not sure you can exactly just go and knock sense into him.
And Kadri
go ahead.
was one. Sorry, Kadri was like one alleged incident,
Yeah.
right? I mean, something that was, one of some of those back channel stuff that you hear, but nothing that ever came out for confirmed. But you could, I mean, I'm going to say this and then I'm instantly going to be laughed at, but you can rely on Nazem Kadri, right? You can be sure that he's going to be there. I know he made a couple of mistakes during Leaf playoff runs, but you can't compare the two. You can rely on Nazem Kadri to be there for you and compete and give everything he's got for the team. Despite the fact that he had a couple of brain farts, and obviously we don't want to go back there, Leaf fans.
No, and on behalf of Leafs Nation, Tony, thank you so much. But the fact of the matter is that.
But I would take him on my team anytime. I wouldn't take Evander Kane.
Well, I mean, the truth of the matter is that Evander Kane is not a spring chicken. If I'm not mistaken, he's got to be 30, in his early 30s.
Still, I think he's 29, 30. Yeah.
Yeah. So he's not a spring chicken.
It's not like he's been playing a lot.
Well, yeah,
he hasn't been playing a lot the last couple of years. So.
Yeah, exactly right. But I mean, you would if he doesn't get it, especially during this time where a lot of people in the sports world or just in life, people in general, if they haven't taken the last 20 months to reflect, now it's 22 months of self-reflection, then you got to wonder if he is going to understand the course of his actions. And speaking of which, you got to talk about Antoniou Brown. And here's a guy who has you want to talk about how Kane and his departures with his teams, and Brown's the way Brown left with Tampa, you could say it was epic proportions. He released a statement, Antoniou Brown did, talking about his side of the story. To take a step back first, Tony, were you surprised that Tampa took a chance on Antoniou Brown in the first place?
No, I'm not surprised because of the Tom Brady factor, right? Tom Brady took the chance to bring him in to New England. The difference between New England and Tampa Bay is that, Tom didn't run the show there. So one mistake that Antoniou Brown made, Bill Belichick sent him packing, right? But Tom Brady pretty much runs the show, and you can tell he does. And he basically cut his coach's nuts off by bringing Antoniou Brown in and giving him a chance again after the vaccine passport, the fake vaccine passport thing that happened with Antoniou Brown as well. So I'm not surprised because just like Evander Kane, Randy, and talent prevails. If you have the talent, you're going to get chances, right? And that's the same case. So I'm not surprised at all. And Tom Brady should take some of the blame, being a bit of an enabler, because there's another guy who has some serious issues that he needs to work through that he probably will never get the chance to because he just keeps getting, a pass.
And, Tony touched on it, Ben, and really as, people are reacting more to Antoniou Brown and his actions and the history that he had, one thing that came to my mind is where are the leagues that employ these players who do have what appears to be obvious, some very troubled, cognitive issues or whatever the case is. I really haven't heard a lot from what the league should be doing with regards to Antoniou Brown, but you could think about players who have brain injuries and the like. Have you thought about the league's perspective in this whole matter? Should they be doing something with regards to, I guess, Antoniou Brown to start?
Yeah, I mean, as soon as I saw the incident happen and everything unfold, I immediately just went to thinking, he's probably, I don't want to use the term CTE, but it's hard to deny it. You can go back a couple of years when he was still with the Steelers, and some of those games with the Bengals and Vontaze Burfict, some of the hits he took from Vontaze Burfict and whatnot, like a couple of them, it's kind of like just since that happened, it's all gone downhill from him. In terms of the league, I wouldn't be surprised if he kind of gets the Kaepernick treatment, gets blackballed by GMs, owners, whatever it may be. Obviously, different reasons. I think more so because what Antoniou Brown did almost kind of showed up, the Bucks and the NFL as a whole, just by leaving the game like that. What the league does to approach it's going to be interesting to see, but I wouldn't be surprised. I still think Brown has some value to teams in terms of going onto a roster and being able to contribute for a little bit, but you just don't know if you can rely on him. And to this point in his career, it almost seems like it's mostly been about himself.
I mean, Tony, I guess to put a cap on Antoniou Brown, the fact of the matter is that he does have some erratic behavior, such as a number of NFL players. I mean, hey, you could even tie it into hockey as well. I don't know if you saw a feature about you being a Penguins fan. There was a feature on Kevin Stevens of him being homeless in northwestern Ontario there.
I think that's Joe. I think that was Joe Murphy. Joe Stevens
Murphy, excuse me. Yeah, that's right.
That's Joe Murphy.
Yeah. But
I don't. Sorry.
No. I was wondering, with regards to Antoniou Brown, and you want to tie in Junior Seau, you want to tie in Mike Webster. I mean, obviously Antoniou Brown hadn't got to that point yet. If there is anything to, with regards to any sort of brain injury, but is it possible that his behavior could be because of the sport that he plays?
No. Well, look, I'm not going to deny head injuries, obviously, but first of all, CTE is not something we can prove until the person is deceased.
Sure.
And I'm sure there's something there, right? But it doesn't excuse him. He's been an asshole pretty much his whole life. That's the bottom line. I mean, he's been an asshole there's a reason why he wasn't at a frontline college, one of the top colleges that he came. He had to come from the back door. He wasn't a high draft pick. Every step of the way, it had to do with his attitude. Now, you can dive deep into his family background, his what he grew up in, the environment he grew up in. You can trace it back to that. I mean, we're not going to get into the psychology of that. The bottom line is that he's an asshole. And you even saw the way he talked about Tom Brady in a podcast. Here's a guy who vouched for him, stuck his neck out on the line for him, and there he is on a podcast like 2 days later talking smack about him, right? Saying, he's not my friend because Gronk is getting $3 million. I'm only getting $1 with incentives, right? 2 hours later, he's got a rap song out after he jumps in an Uber and he's at a Brooklyn Nets game. I've got zero sympathy for Antoniou Brown, right? He's lucky to where he's gotten to in his life because of his talent. Certainly not because of personality or the person he is. He's just not a good person, right? I don't think another team will take a chance on him. Right. You might see Colin Kaepernick in the league before you see Antoniou Brown. I won't hold my breath there either.
You know what? There is something, and I think Ben alluded to it, that I would not be surprised if Antoniou Brown resurfaces with another team. I mean, it's been he's on his fourth team now. You don't see it?
I don't see it.
No,
I think
no.
I think that was his swan song. I think he knows it too.
I'm just thinking if somebody's desperate enough, they really think they can make a run at the chip, then maybe. But who knows? Who knows? If only we were owners and GMs.
Well, finally, guys, with regards to the bizarro world that is sports and during COVID, you have to really take to notice of what's happening on the other side of the world. And number one men's player Novak Djokovic is, I guess, still waiting to find out if he is able to play in the Australian Open. His vaccination status has been known. He is not a proponent of the vaccine. He's made that quite clear, and still managed to find his way to Australia. He did spend some time in a government isolation facility, and then was given permission to leave, albeit under some restrictions. He's able to train. A report said that Djokovic lied about his test certificate, maybe facing jail time because he traveled while he was diagnosed with COVID. Tony, where do you think this will end up? I mean, do you think in the end Djokovic is going to play? Because if he does win this Australian Open, he will have, I believe, the most majors in tennis history.
Yes, I believe so. If not tied, but I think he's there for sure. You know what? I would have guessed that he's fine after the courts went against the Australian government's ruling, but it seems like the Australian government is hell-bent on making sure that he doesn't play. So I'm 50-50 there. That's a tough move for the Australian government, but I mean, they have these rules. The rules are in place. You could have a totally different discussion on how stupid the rules are, but he's got to, abide by them. But he does have a medical exemption, and I think the whole visa thing was just a bullshit way to make his life miserable, because they look at him as, here's this elite. He's coming into a country that we've tried desperately to lock down for the last 2 years, and now. Just think about it. The guy's coming to do his job, right? And I'm not saying Novak Djokovic is a victim. I don't feel sorry for him. He did make some mistakes, but at the end of the day, it's about the rules, and the rules are dumb. And Randy, you and I have had many conversations about COVID through messaging and everything that's been going on with it the last couple of years in terms of, laws, restrictions, mandates, all that stuff, just radically crazy rules that get set in place like this. And this is what happens. I mean, that's why other leagues have adjusted their protocols, because they realized mid-form that, okay, this is too much. This is overreach. We got to make adjustments here, right? This is absolutely, at this point, to me, it's 50-50. There's a good chance he will be sent out of the country. It feels like the Australian government really, really wants to dig their heels in here.
Well, and Ben, I don't know if you have anything else to add, but apparently Australia did go through a really tough time, and not really sure what your thoughts are with regards to physical distancing, and I mean, if you want to compare it to Canada versus USA, it seems that Australia has a lot more stringent rules, especially compared to the Americans. But do you think Djokovic is going to find himself in Melbourne playing, defending his Australian Open title?
It's it's hard to even put a percentage to. I mean, I'd probably have to say the same as Tony, probably about 50-50. The entire story and saga of this is just so bonkers. Like 2 years ago, who would have thought we'd be talking about this, right? Like,
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, the rules, as dumb as they are, it is what it is, right? And it's tough. We talk about it here, how they're silly, and you can find ways around certain things, but and And there's other things where it's like, well, how does that make any sense? It's the rules are there, and I guess it's partially up to Novak to have to know that, right? And obviously Novak made a few mistakes, but at the same time, these guys are coming over to do their job, like Tony said. And yeah, it's the whole saga is just nuts though. It's so hard. Like if you're talking to a non-sports fan or somebody who just came out from Iraq after 2 years or something, and you're trying to explain this to them, they would just God only knows.
Yeah. I mean,
there's
go ahead.
sorry, I just want to say, like, guys like Novak Djokovic, Aaron Rodgers, Cole Beasley for the Buffalo Bills, Jonathan Isaac, the Orlando Magic player, who's I don't know if you ever listen to this kid talk. He's such a brilliant young kid, and he makes so much sense. And these guys get so ostracized. They get so beat up on, and I think they're the bravest of the lot, because I don't think any of them have been insensitive in the way they've stressed their feelings, their beliefs. I think all of them have come with some sort of common sense, research, their own education, but yet, you go through Twitter and it's amazing. I hope Djokovic gets thrown out and never plays tennis again, and blah, 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 and this and that. He's a super spreader. He's a killer. That's what's bonkers about it, is just everybody is just, they love to pile on these people because they have their own thoughts. Like it's nuts. It's nuts to me.
So I guess I'm a little bit different in the sense that, maybe they have some guts in expressing their feelings, but I mean, guts doesn't equal smarts, in my opinion. Now, do I think that these restrictions, especially the ones that we have now, are justified, and are they correct? That's another story. But when you have someone like Aaron Rodgers, who is, consulting with a podcaster like Joe Rogan, which is what he had mentioned there, that to me doesn't make a heck of a lot of sense. Like, for example, I had a conversation with somebody, but hang tight. Like, I had a conversation with somebody who said that they followed this one doctor, but then the doctor was, and the first Google search, albeit Google search, led me to this doctor being identified as a who is spreading misinformation regarding COVID. Now, what somebody's interpretation of misinforming the public, that is unfortunately, that's a debate all to itself. But to voice an opinion on something like whether it be COVID, whether it be social issues and so on, like, you have to be really bang on, in my opinion. And the numbers are what they are. It seems that unvaccinated people are finding themselves in the ICU more than vaccinated people. Doesn't mean that if you're double vaxxed, I got my booster, doesn't mean I can't find myself in the hospital. Potentially I could be, but the numbers are what they are. And I think that when it comes to
what numbers are those?
Well, the numbers of
what numbers are those? What do you mean?
So,
like,
yeah, so
I think he's referring to like unvaccinated. Yeah.
Unvaccinated to the ICU.
I mean, you're looking at straight up numbers. What's the story behind these people in the ICU? I mean, the CDC just came out with 75% of those who passed away, or those who end up in the ICU or whatever, have at least 4 comorbidities to them. Pretty sure Novak Djokovic is good. I'm pretty sure he doesn't have 4 comorbidities attached to him, right? We've got to put things into perspective, Randy. I mean, this is what they're doing to us in terms of the way they report these numbers to us. Only now, funny enough, after 2 years, we're starting to get a breakdown of, how many. So if 75% has 4 comorbidities, how many think 3? What, 90% have 3? 95% had 3. The point is, one death is way too much and it's a tragedy. And we can get into a whole other discussion of why those people died at the beginning when there possibly could have been treatment. You think Joe Rogan gets his medical advice from like something he researches? Don't you think he has the resources to speak to, doctors? Like he said on his podcast, I could afford people medicine, motherfucker, when he was talking about Don Lemon. This guy just doesn't start popping shit in his mouth, right? Like for no reason. He's obviously spoken to people too. So if Aaron Rodgers is calling Joe Rogan saying, how did you hear about this and that? Like, so what?
But
They're trying something different.
Yes.
Right?
So what? Because
maybe doctors should have done that. Maybe doctors should have done that from the beginning. We might have saved more lives, right? What do we know, right? What? And you said you went on Google and you put up this doctor and it said what? Spreads misinformation. Who do you think put that information there? It was Google, right? Google is the one that said this doctor spreads misinformation. So you're going to Google and Google is your source. Do you understand what I'm saying?
No. I completely 100% get that. Absolutely. Because, for the record, I wasn't going to take a lot of solace in what the girl was saying in the first place. I mean, she's saying that she's so versed in the polio vaccine. Something tells me, I don't know what the polio vaccine is. I know that the 3 of us had it when we were babies because we were forced to. That was something that we were
well, it's a hell of a lot more important than the COVID vaccine. Yeah. That's what it is, right?
Well, I mean, okay, but the fact of the matter is that nobody has polio, right? So I mean,
and it's something that's been around for more than 3 months, right? So
okay,
that's the point. But
no, sure. I think where I am losing this, especially when it comes to Aaron Rodgers. Why is he talking to Joe Rogan? Why doesn't he go to the actual source itself? I mean, for me to say now, okay, let's say that you get your Tony, you get your information from the Joe Rogan podcast, who gets his information from medical professionals. But then I say that I get my medical information from Tony and Antoniou. Something tells me that the information could get mistranslated, that there could be a lot of people who are saying, why don't you just talk to the doctors themselves? Especially when you're a guy like Aaron Rodgers, who has the access to speak to said people all over again, to anybody who he wants.
And you don't think he does?
Well, then why didn't he say it?
You just said it yourself. He has access to all these people. You don't think he does?
But he said that he spoke to
maybe
Joe
he doesn't
Rogan.
Hey, perhaps he doesn't want to use that doctor's name because the doctor probably said, hey, don't use my name, because if I'm pushing ivermectin or if I'm pushing monoclonal antibodies, sorry, I could lose my freaking license. They're gonna come after me, right? So, you don't know what I'm talking about. These are treatments but this is the world we live in now.
Oh, wait a minute. So okay.
This is the world we live in now. Not every doctor's voice is being heard.
Okay,
that's just where we are now.
And
Randy. It's not conspiracy theory. It's fact. Like it's out there. You see it. There are a lot of doctors who have been censored. I mean, look around, man. It's happening all the time. I work at a hospital.
Okay, sure.
So
but I mean,
and again,
if you're saying
we're going down the rabbit hole.
No, absolutely. But I mean, I think that, and I know that you're using it as an example, but if Joe Rogan is using medical information from doctors who don't want their name to be published, then that just loses even more credibility, right? So, in the end, I think that all of us are going to take a look back and see what kind of mistakes were made, with regards to what's taking place right now, comparing Canada to the US. The US is still allowing full capacity to their NBA and NHL venues, and in Canada it's played behind closed doors. Ben, love to get your thoughts on this one. Me personally, since October, I've actually gone to two sporting events in the U.S. One was in San Antonio. I went to a Spurs game where they did not check for vaccination status. And then I went to an Avalanche game in Denver, and they did ask for a vaccination card. But, with regards to having fans in the stands versus not, which country do you think is doing it right?
With, and I don't want to go too deep into the whole vaccination stuff and all of that, but if you're an event that's looking at only fully vaccinated individuals, we've seen how the virus affects those individuals who are vaccinated. I had it over Christmas, and it was nothing more than being achy for 2 days and a sore throat, right? Didn't get me that badly, didn't have to go to the ICU, anything like that. Same with my dad, same with my girlfriend. I went to a Bills game in December, just before they closed down or made the testing requirement for trips of, any duration. And it was nice. It felt normal again. I can say that much. So I'm in the boat where you can, if you're doing the fully vaccinated, I don't see the issue with having full capacity, even without the, if they're not vaccinated. It's their choice, right? It's that person's choice. They chose not to get vaccinated. So I mean, if they get it, and it hurts them more, then that's, they chose to make that choice. But I'm in the boat now where you can't, there's always going to be a new variant or something new. And, just seems like this lockdown nonsense is just never ending. Right. So I'm in the boat that you just go back to the fans in the stadium. And, I think what the US is doing is okay. Australia, we're obviously a little more strict about it throughout the entirety of this 2-year period. So maybe it's a bit new for them going back to what is, quote unquote, a new normal. But yeah, I'm all for fans in the stadiums, wherever it is.
Tony, I think it's safe to say that the three of us have been affected in one way or another. Not knowing 100% sure if Ben had tickets to the Canada-US qualifier in Hamilton.
I do.
I'm not surprised at all. I'm actually
I do have a few.
And if you're not seeing this podcast over video, I am wearing an Alphonso Davies Canada jersey. But personally, I had tickets to a Bulls game in December. Would have been great to see DeMar DeRozan. Would have been great to see Norman Powell, because I had tickets to a Trailblazers game. And obviously, these lockdowns affect you a lot more personally. You work at Scotiabank Arena, and I'm assuming that you haven't been to work because there's no fans in the.
Actually, I have.
Oh, you have? Oh, okay, great. Well, that is good to hear.
Yeah,
but Ben, actually, before you continue, Tony, Ben actually, Tony actually worked Ben in the NHL bubble when it was at Scotiabank, and as mentioned, Tony works at the arena and did get a chance to work inside the Toronto bubble. Sorry to interrupt, Tony. Please continue.
No worries. Yeah, they actually need a couple of people. We still feed the teams and the media and staff, whatever staff is there. We're in charge of feeding them and whatever. So they still need us, thank God. But it's tough. I feel we were getting so excited up to the point where we're locked down again. There's so many other people, so many of my colleagues who were just so excited to be back and working, and they just felt alive again. And I'm not even exaggerating. And it's just so deflating, right? And I agree with Ben. It's like the messaging is so weird when you're forcing people to get vaccinated and pushing it and coercing them in some cases, like myself, where I took it so I can keep my jobs. And yet you're just shutting down areas that only require vaccinated people. It's just, if you want to get the unvaccinated on board somehow, even and because look, in my opinion, it's been over a year now. those who have chosen not to be vaccinated are not going to do it.
Mhm.
But if you can get some of them to get vaccinated, you're not going to with this messaging. I mean, that's the craziest part of it, right? Like, if this is about getting people vaccinated, which it is for one reason or another, but that's another show. You know, it's just the messaging is nuts to me. It's crazy. It's like, what are you trying to do? Does it work or doesn't it work? Because if it works, you shouldn't be shutting down. That's it.
Well, yeah. I mean, there's so many questions, and like I said, I mean, we're going to be looking back at this 20 years from now and wonder how right or wrong we were. And you know, I don't want to get ahead of myself, but it looks like Omicron is a weaker strain than Delta, for example. Whatever that's worth, I don't know. But you know, it would be. We will be talking about the World Cup qualifier, especially in Hamilton, in moments. But let's take it over to the beautiful game, guys. And Toronto FC is making a huge splash, signing Italian national Lorenzo Insigne. He spent his career in Napoli. He said that he didn't want to play for another Serie A team other than his hometown of Napoli. He's finding himself to the Reds. Ben, how the hell did this happen?
How the hell did it happen? Good question. It's crazy. You know, it sounds like the talks and negotiations have been going on for quite some time, and it's smart business by Toronto FC, and I mean any other MLS club that chooses to go this route, to look at those guys who you know, Insigne by no means at the end of his career, but guys who have been around for a good bit, you know, going into their 30s, who have deals coming expiring at the end of season, right? It's a good bit of business by Toronto FC to go after that. How it came to be, I mean, I think money. That's the real thing, right? You see the dollar figure that he's going to be making per year in Toronto compared to what some of the other teams in Europe were offering him. Whether I saw Tottenham was interested, obviously Napoli was looking to re-sign him, a couple other clubs here and there. Atletico Madrid apparently was the team that TFC beat out. Yeah, I think it really just came down to the money, right? And you know, we saw with Sebastian Giovinco here for a good bit of time that the lifestyle, you know, is obviously a good one for guys that come over of that stature.
Well, and I do wonder. So, I mean, as you mentioned, money. You don't think that he could have had that kind of contract, whether it be in the Premiership or Bundesliga? Ben, I'm sorry.
Who are you asking?
Sorry.
Sorry. Go ahead, Ben.
Sorry. I mean, the money, from what it sounds like, would have been a little less, but I mean, I don't think significantly less.
Apparently it's 11 mil for 5 years.
11. I think it comes out to, I'm not sure if that's 11 and a half US or Canadian, or 11 and a half euros. I think it was the euros.
I think it's euros.
But
I believe with add-ons to the way it's structured, it's like 15 Canadian a year.
Yeah,
including the add-ons.
Crazy. I think
whatever.
The closest number that, and then the number Atletico offered, I think, was about 8.5 euros, something like that, along those lines.
Yeah, that's why, to answer your question, Randy, no, I don't think there was another club in Europe. I don't think they're in the market for paying that kind of money to, you know, guys over 30, unless their names are, you know, Messi or Ronaldo, who brings back, I mean, they're capable of bringing back so much money in sales and marketing and stuff. So no, I really think Toronto FC just outbid the shit out of all of them.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you know, Tony, you think of the signings that MLS had over the years, and you know, let's go through the list. I mean, with Beckham, Henry, Robbie Keane, Wayne Rooney, Lampard, Kaká, Ibrahimovic, you could say that.
Hey, Drogba,
Yeah.
please don't forget Drogba,
Absolutely,
because you'll say Montreal Twitter will go insane if you don't say Drogba.
You know what? I was actually in Montreal. Ben, I don't know. Maybe you were there as well. When Drogba played TFC, it was the last regular season game of the 15 season, and Toronto was up 1-0.
Yeah.
And
The
were you there?
first year Toronto made the playoffs. I wasn't at the game, unfortunately. I was watching that one on TV. I just moved into my university, I guess, about a month before.
Sure. Well,
but, yes, he torched us in that one and then torched us in the playoff game the next week later.
That's right. Yeah. And
I remember it all too vividly.
I'm assuming, Ben, I'm assuming you've been to Saputo.
I haven't seen a match there, but I have seen the stadium. All the times I've seen Toronto in Montreal, it's been at the Big O.
For 2 season seats. Oh, really? You've been? How was that like? Wait a minute, you weren't at the playoff game where they screwed up the
where they messed up the lines. I was there. Yeah. That was a disaster. Me and the buddies I went with, we're Montreal traffic, it can get pretty brutal. We stayed the night at my buddy's place who went to Queens and Kingston, and then probably didn't give ourselves enough time to get down. We got in, I guess, shortly before what would have been actual kickoff, but then it got delayed a good 25 minutes.
Yeah, something like that,
because they messed up the lines, and so we ended up getting in comfortably in time. But oh man, what a disaster that was.
But for 2 guys who are season seed holders, Toronto FC season seed holders, I love a TFC game in Montreal. It is just a beauty. Like the stadium is really nice and intimate, and 100%. Like the pitch is really nice, and it's right by the metro, right by Olympic Stadium, and
right beside it.
And getting back to Drogba there, the match that I went to, that regular season game, and he was just he was a fixture. It's too bad that things didn't work out for him, because honestly, like, he could have really made a name and really helped what was then the Impact elevate its profile in that city. But getting back to the Insigne signing, Tony, I mean, where does the signing of Insigne rank in MLS history in your mind?
Oh boy, that's a good question. He's obviously not the biggest name to sign here, but when you look at age, 30 years old is, he'll be 31 by the time he gets here. So he has some years left to play high level soccer. It's got to rank up there for sure, because just the sheer money that was given to him alone, not to mention that he's a fixture on the national team. And he was the captain of one of the top 4 teams in Serie A for a long time. Like I said, not the biggest name, because there are bigger names, but at moment in career, I think it's a huge sign for MLS.
Well, when Giovinco signed with TFC, he believed that he signed his death wish with regards to playing for the Italian national side. And a lot of people are saying that that's not going to be the case with Insigne. Do you have any potential idea why that might be the case? Why do you think Insigne would probably still find himself on the if Italy makes the World Cup, but Euro, which is only going to be the following year? Well, no, it would be in 24, excuse me. But
Seba wasn't a fixture on the national team necessarily, right? Insigne has a spot on the national team. I think that's the difference, right? It's not going to affect him, because they were in 2 totally different places. Seba was looking for a place to play regularly, and he got this great offer in Toronto and came over, and it worked out beautifully for him, but they weren't the same stature at the time. When Toronto FC was getting Giovinco over here. I mean, some people didn't even know who Giovinco was, right? If unless you're following soccer closely, but most people, everybody knows who this guy is because we're used to seeing him on the national team, right? And he scored that great goal against Belgium. And if you're a regular watcher of City A like I am, you appreciate the guy's play and see how good he is. I just think they're just two different players, two different stories. I understand what Seba was saying, and I don't think he meant malice or against MLS or anything like that by saying it. But I think he should have been aware too that I wasn't as favored to be on the national team necessarily all the time as Lorenzo Insigne is.
Yeah, and the reality is that when Giovinco came to MLS, he did win MVP, and obviously one was a main reason why TFC won the MLS Cup in 2017. I guess the final question is that when you think of somebody like Insigne signing with Toronto FC, I don't know if it's the pessimistic or worrywart Toronto fan that immediately thought of Jermaine Defoe when this signing took place. Is it unfair to compare one to the other? That Defoe, he was supposed to lead us to the promised land, and obviously that was just an outright disaster. Ben, what do you think? I mean, in the end, do you think Insigne is going to really take TFC to the next level?
I think he will. Now, I don't think it's completely unfair to compare it to Defoe. I mean, obviously, two huge names. I think I'd say Defoe in a bit different of a spot in his career. Tottenham was kind of starting to grow, and he wasn't in there. I don't think Tottenham really saw him in his plans for too much longer. Insigne with Napoli right now, though, he's I don't watch too much Serie A, but correct me if I'm wrong. He captains them pretty well every week, if I'm not mistaken. And he just came off, appearing in every match but one at the Euro Cup for a team that won the Euro Cup, had 2 goals there. So I would say different spots in their career, but in terms of the name and where they're coming from, I think it is fair to compare them in that sense. But I do think Insigne can take them to the next level. He's still, I'd say in his prime of his career, even at the age of 30, right? And he's, I'm excited to see what he can do in the MLS. I think he'll light it up personally. But yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy.
I mean, Tony, do you think that if Insigne does run the full term of his contract, do you think that not winning an MVP, let alone MLS Cup, would be a failure with this signing?
A failure in terms of course it's a failure because you make these decisions because you want to win, right? Bill Manning is going absolutely apeshit this offseason, and he's not done yet. I assure you that. I'm seeing on Twitter that
as recently as today,
the Salsado thing is pretty much almost done. So they're strengthening the center back, which is the first thing I said when they signed Lorenzo Insigne is okay, now you got more work to do because we have a back line that's weak that you have to fix, and it's only going to be as successful as the moves you make to surround him, right? I'm excited about the prospect of a healthy and rejuvenated Pozuelo playing behind these guys, having these guys setting them up, and whoever the hell else he's going to bring. If Seba comes back on a short term, although he's pretty much written that off. I think he would have come on like a GAM contract.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Something like that. The rumor is the Bellotti thing is off. But Bill Manning took a shot at Lorenzo Insigne by going on some website called transfermarket.com. And he went through a list of all the upcoming players out of contract. And he's like, and that's how he recognized Insigne. But yeah, it would be a failure if they don't win for sure. But it's still a success that you're able to attract someone like that over here, right? And in terms of Jermaine Defoe, I don't think Defoe was prepared for the culture here. I think a lot of things took him. I remember reading articles on how even things like having the media in the locker room and having to answer questions after every game, which is the North American style. It's not as Europe. It's not really conducive to European style. That stuff threw him off a lot. He wasn't ever prepared for that. The travel was something that he really was like 6-hour flight to play a game. Kind of was mind-boggling to him as well. So it's he wasn't prepared for that stuff. I mean, he was playing. I mean, when he wasn't injured, he was producing. It's not like he wasn't. You got to give him credit. I mean, he came here to score goals. He scored goals. He couldn't stay healthy, and he just never got used to the culture here. Whereas, Seba will tell you that Toronto's his home now. He has a home here full time, year round. This is, he loves it here. It's a nice place for him to raise his family. He's not, being mauled at supermarkets wherever he goes, and he lives in obscurity. And maybe that's something Lorenzo Insigne is looking for too. There are people who know him well who are reporting that, he basically wakes up, goes to work, trains, goes home to his family. There's nothing else that he does. I mean, it's soccer and family. So maybe a place like this is conducive to him, and that's why he'll be successful here. I mean, we're just speculating, but you're always going to make that comparison. You're always going to be like, oh, I hope it works out, because we saw it work out the way it did with Seba, and we're just praying that we can get, a fraction of that, right? Because Seba was he was balls out. He was all in. But yeah, don't underestimate if we get a healthy and rejuvenated Pozuelo too. I think he's going to have a really good year if he's gotten over some of his issues over the past year.
Well, and also the fact that TFC has a new coach in Bob Bradley, a 3-time MLS Coach of the Year. He won Gold Cup in 2007. So I mean, they're going to be led by a guy who definitely has a lot of credibility, especially in North America. And speaking of which, guys, hey, the CONCACAF session of the World Cup qualifying will take place in a couple of weeks. Canada is going to start in Honduras on the 27th. They will be playing El Salvador on February 2nd, but sandwiched in the middle is their big match against the United States in Hamilton, outdoors, in Tim Hortons Field, January 30th. Ben, this is we have never seen a World Cup qualification as Canada has done incredibly well. They're third in the table. Of course, the top 3 teams automatically qualify.
First in the table.
I'm sorry, first in the table. Sorry, the top 3 teams make it to Qatar. Is it hard not to get ahead of ourselves? Is it hard to get ahead of ourselves in the fact that, a lot of fans, whether they are diehards or just new to the party, are thinking that it's going to be inevitable? But I mean, there's still some soccer to play, right?
Yeah. So I think it's hard to not get ahead of ourselves based on, how successful they have been here so far. I'm certainly trying to keep myself in check a little bit every time I see a video clip or a picture that I took at one of the other previous matches or anything like that. But, as somebody who's been watching the Canadian men's national team program since I've been a little kid, which, hasn't been as long as many, but, I've seen my fair share of doom. I do want to keep myself in check because I still know we need to go to the likes of Costa Rica. We need to go to Honduras. We need to go to El Salvador, all these places where CONCACAF shithousery is at its finest, right? So Definitely hard to not look ahead and get ahead of ourselves. But with that being said, I don't think we've ever seen Canada, as successful as they have been in World Cup qualifying like they are right now. Even when the one time they did qualify, they weren't, I don't think they went their first 8 matches unbeaten. So, pretty it is impressive stuff, but I do think we still can't get too far ahead of ourselves because we've got some tricky fixtures in the not too distant future.
And was wondering if you are familiar with the 3 opponents that Canada is facing. Is there a player in your mind, whether it is the Costa Ricans, El Salvador, or USA, that can be a problem for the Canadians? Not so much individual, but I mean, like, which of the 3 do you think would be the toughest of the matches?
Definitely the US. Definitely the US. I mean, just on paper, their quality of the team, obviously their run of success in CONCACAF, basically making it every World Cup that there is, other than 2014, obviously, or sorry, 2018 when
yeah.
2018 things went awry for them in qualifying. But you look at their roster, you look at the names on their guys that they have on their team and that they're deploying every match for World Cup qualifying, the Pulisic's, the Dests, the McKennies. There's no question that they're probably the most talented team in CONCACAF, I'd say, above Mexico. But with that being said, we've seen how they've matched up against the US the last couple of years. And they can certainly do it, especially being at home. Now, climate wise is going to be not as hard for the US to adjust to, unlike Edmonton for 2 teams like Costa Rica and Mexico. But it'll certainly be a spectacle.
Well, and that was one thing that I really don't know if I can understand, and the fact that they did choose Hamilton for this match. Apparently I'm guessing that Hamilton's pitch is a lot more
so
sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, it really came down to Edmonton and Hamilton for a few different reasons. One was a lot of people are calling for the game to be in Vancouver. Originally, I thought it was going to be put in Vancouver, but they just had their turf redone. And by the time it's finished and that match is supposed to be played, I think there was only going to be like a week between the turf being finished and that match being played. Obviously, for guys like this at this caliber, you need more time than just a week to make sure that turf is in good working order and all of that noise. And then the other with Toronto was I believe it was MLSC's like, we don't want matches being played in January on the grass, after TFC and the Argos had a deep run into December in the CFL, right? So that's, the natural grass in Toronto needs time to heal up for that. In that climate, it's never going to be good for the grass. So then it really came down to Herdman again. And it sounded like the big thing was travel. Looking at where the US is playing, they wanted to try and make them travel as far as possible for this match. And I think, now you could correct me, I might be wrong, but I think they're playing in Seattle or Portland for the match before. So I think they wanted to try and make them travel as far as possible for this one. So that brought us to Hamilton, right? And, I think Herdman obviously makes this decisions informed with the guys. And, I imagine they're okay playing on the turf to have this go through.
Yeah, I just want to take a look quickly as I'm scrolling to see the schedule here. And anybody know where lower.com field is? I guess it's one Google search away, but it seems that but I mean,
it might be disinformation.
Columbus.
It's in
Columbus. Okay. So yes, I was wrong there.
Well, I mean, if travel was the issue, and it's funny because I definitely you're more versed in soccer than a guy like myself, but I for one didn't hear about the pitch in Vancouver. But if I had to choose between a couple of extra hours in the air versus a climate controlled facility like BC Place, I definitely would have thought that BC Place would have been a lot more advantageous for the national side. Tony, I was getting ready to go to Vancouver just for that match, and the wife was
As
interested.
was I.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, and I mean, the wife was interested to go, and I mean, obviously this was a pre-lockdown, but and there's no chance that she was going to go to Hamilton, in the end of January. But I hadn't had a chance to look at the game stats of Canada Mexico, but I mean, I did not seem it didn't seem to me that Canada was a lock to win that match. The second half, it seemed to me that Mexico did put on the pressure. It took an incredible save by Boran to avoid a draw in that match. Scaling it back a little bit, I thought Vancouver was a no-brainer. Now, with the pitch being what it is, and dare I say it, instead of Hamilton and 24,000 fans, whatever the restrictions are, why not have it in Montreal? You have, sure, the pitch is apparently it's concrete, but hopefully they know how to draw an 18-yard box. But you think that with 60,000 fans in Montreal, you get more revenue for the national program, and that seemed to be like a no-brainer.
Well, you also have, if it's snowing, the roof might cave in again.
Yeah.
So that's one problem with Olympic Stadium.
No, apparently
that's
a thing, though.
Vancouver,
apparently that's a thing. Like
It is. No, it is. It 100% is.
What do you like? I don't understand this.
That might be
I don't know if,
but you know what? It's tough enough having these players play on, the upgraded field turf they use now. To ask them to play on, as you eloquently called it, concrete would be tough. The Vancouver thing, even if the pitch wasn't being fixed, I'm wondering if they would have had them travel that far. The players, the European based players, I'm assuming they would have preferred to play in Hamilton somewhere east just to cut down and travel for, you've got to think about the players too in situations like this, what they want. And I'm sure the teams like a Bayern Munich might have some say in it. I'm not saying they have total say in it, but I'm just saying they might, I'm sure that you've got to cater to these players, which is something probably that hasn't happened in Canada soccer ever, right? As because you didn't have these types of players to cater for now. Now you got to take care of them, right? This might be a better option for them when you're traveling from France, traveling from Germany, Portugal, where some of our key guys are coming over from. So maybe that's it. I'm just guessing. I have no idea. That could be one of it.
And then another one, you mentioned guys rather being in more central in Canada, such as Hamilton. You look at the time difference from, say, Germany to Vancouver, it's 9 hours, right? Mm-hmm. 5 hours still isn't pretty for these guys, but I think it's probably easier to get used to 5 hours than 9 hours, right? To an eight if it's 5:11 in Vancouver right now, and it's 2:11 a.m. in Germany. So that's definitely a factor. And I need to ask, have you guys seen matches in at the Big O in Montreal?
No,
baseball or soccer?
No. I had a chance. I had a chance to go to both. Years ago, the Jays and the Expos were playing, and some buddies went, and I wasn't able to make it. Tony, if you remember Mark Hendrickson, the pitcher, he hit a home run at the Big O at that game. It would have been apparently the Big O is as decrepit as it looks on TV. And
it is
Mark Hendrickson.
I don't even. Yeah, he was my favorite Jays pitcher, right? Growing up. Yeah,
he was like 6'6",
like Randy Johnson.
Yeah, he was like Randy Johnson. Yeah, 100% he was. Right. cracked a
Oh,
home run.
that-
And actually, my friends were right by the first baseline, and Orlando Hudson tracked down a foul ball, and he one of my buddies was like, Orlando, we drove 7 hours just to see you. And he was like, what's going on, fellas? How you doing? Everything. Because he was such a showman there. But
This the O-Dog.
the O-Dog, that's right. But I
The
don't know.
original O-Dog.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that stadium there is, I know we don't want to turn this into just ripping on the Big O, but my God, it is just awful. The one end
It
of
was
the
out-
stadium is just a big concrete slab, and they
yeah.
somehow managed to get like a makeshift scoreboard on there. Like, it is brutal. There's no cell service in that joint, none, because it's just cement everywhere.
Yeah.
Everywhere. It is so bad. In the winter, that playoff game when they played Montreal there was signs everywhere saying watch out for falling ice.
What?
Like, it is
You're
outrageous.
kidding.
It's outrageous.
Well, I mean, it was outdated in 1976.
Yeah.
So it didn't have a chance.
Yeah.
The national team, though, I'll say this. I'll throw my 2 cents worth in. I'm going to take John Herdman's attitude, and I'm going to say I expect us to be in the World Cup. I'm going to take the attitude of our coach, because that is what has driven this team to where they are right now.
Mhm.
There is no reason why they can't finish in the top 3. And I'm confident they'll do it. But I do agree with Ben that the tough ones are the Panamas, the Hondurases, the Costa Rica.
Yeah,
Playing in
doesn't
those
matter.
teams, those teams might not be as tough as the States or
Exactly.
Mexico.
Mhm.
But those environments, like when they're going to be in their hotel rooms and at 4:00 in the
Oh
morning,
my
fireworks are going to be blasting off, those are the environments that they have to overcome. And I think past Canadian teams were mentally defeated before they even stepped foot into those stadiums. I think it's different, though. I think the attitude of their
Absolutely.
coach is totally spilled into the whole group. I remember his post game after the game in Azteca, and he was pissed that they drew. Like, he was like, this should have been 3 points. We should have
Mhm.
won this game, And when your coach is saying that, you're going to take that attitude on. So I expect them to make the World Cup.
Yeah, absolutely.
It would be a huge surprise if they didn't make the World Cup. Again, the top 3 teams make it to Qatar, and the 4th team do play in a playoff. Canada.
With Oceania, may I add. So
Yeah.
I
So New Zealand.
already like our chances against whoever comes out of that division. Say we had to play in that, I like,
That's right.
on paper, I like us against whoever is coming out of that continent.
Mm-hmm.
Could it be the first time since 1986 that the Canadians will make the Men's World Cup? Only time will tell. So, guys, it's been such a great chat. I do want to end things off the way that things usually end off in this podcast, and that is a rapid fire segment that I like to call Big Deal, No Big Deal. You two know the drill. I'm going to pose a question to you, and you're going to tell me your thoughts. So, the NHL has officially confirmed that they are not going to the Beijing Olympics. I don't know about you guys, but I thought that the participation that the men's tournament in the Sochi Olympics was somewhat anticlimactic. I mean, Canada dominated. The time zone was what it was, and it really didn't. It wasn't the same as Nagano or Vancouver, even though Canada did win gold. Ben, we'll start to you. The fact that the NHL is not going to these Olympics, is that a big deal or no big deal?
I'm going to say no big deal, just because we've had an Olympics now where they didn't participate, right? So I guess we kind of know what the product's going to be like. However, don't get me wrong, it is very disappointing. I think any hockey fan could tell you they like to see the NHL players at the Olympics, whether it's Canada, whether it's the US, whether it's Sweden, Russia, a best on best tournament's always very entertaining. But just because we've seen an Olympics without the NHLers, I'm going to go with no big deal.
Tony, I'm sure that you remember what Olympic hockey was like before the NHL participated in Nagano, whether it was Lillehammer, even home in Calgary. Yeah, sure, maybe it is a little bit more alluring when you have Brodeur and Gretzky and Lemieux on your team rather than Sean Burke and Peter Nedved. But, Pyeongchang was what it was. And the Olympic tournament, although Canada didn't win gold, I thought that the hockey was engaging enough. I mean, the truth of the matter is that the NHL doesn't have an international tournament. Well, in North America, at least, the World Cup hadn't taken place in 6 years. The time before that was in 2004. The lack of a World Cup and the lack of consistency of a World Cup, I think that's the difference maker. If there was a consistent World Cup of hockey, then I'm of the opinion that players wouldn't be so enamored with the Olympics, potentially throwing away the rest of their NHL season and possibility of winning a Stanley Cup. What do you think?
I think there's something to that. I do agree, although, Olympic gold medal is an Olympic gold medal, but I see what you're saying. And I agree with you. They've botched the World Cup of hockey thing. You can't have it every, 10 years or 16 years or 13 years. It's just the prestige of it is not there, right? And the last time they had it, they had, gimmick teams. Although it turned out to be a fun tournament. I feel bad for the players. I mean, I feel bad for the Connor McDavids who, are going to miss out on that opportunity. And who knows what the CBA will look like in 4 years from now, or, are they going to go back? You always feel bad for the players. You can tell that they're not happy about it. But at the same time, it's like, what if I test positive and I'm going to spend, 28 days in a welded shut room in China? I can do that in Canada.
It's sorry, go ahead. If you want to finish off.
I honestly, I'm not going to lose any sleep over it. I'm actually relieved they're not going, because it has enabled the league to postpone all these Canada-based games. And so they have those dates in February to make them up. And hopefully there'll be fans watching the games again. And I could be working regularly. So selfishly, I'm okay with no Olympics.
Yeah, kind of hard to believe that Connor McDavid hasn't represented Canada as a professional hockey player. And I guess
Team North America.
Yeah, Team North America. Pretty fun squad, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Tony, Becky Hammon, she is made quite a lot of headway in terms of women coaching men's leagues. She's been an assistant coach for the San Antonio Spurs for a number of years. She has agreed to become the head coach of the Las Vegas Aces of the WNBA. A lot of people thought that she was going to eventually get a gig in the NBA. She decided to take a position with the Aces. Is that a big deal or no big deal? Becky Hammon going to the Aces?
No big deal to me, because I don't care for the NBA, or WNBA, or NBA for that matter. But, it's funny. She's been attached as being an interviewee to so many NBA jobs. I mean, and she never got one. And so I think she is where she rightfully belongs, I guess. I mean, I don't want to sound like a dick, but I couldn't see an NBA team hiring her anyway. But good for her, right? Like she spent a lot of years under Greg Popovich, so hopefully she's picked up. I'm assuming she's picked up a lot of good things from him. Sense of humor, sarcasm as well attached to it. But no big deal to me.
Ben, I don't know how much of a fan you are of basketball, but it seemed to me that she obviously she learned from one of, if not the very best, in Popovich. Women do have a role in basketball, whether it be refereeing or play-by-play. I thought it was a matter of time that she was going to get an NBA spot. I don't know. I think of Paul Maurice when I think of Becky Hammon. Here's a guy who had a stint or two in at the NHL, went to the KHL, and then found himself back in Winnipeg. You think that we'll see Becky Hammon back in the NBA as a head coach?
Yeah, I as a head coach, I sure hope so. Back in the NBA, I'd say for sure, yes. You spend that much time under Greg Popovich, you're obviously doing something right, and you're going to pick up a hell of a lot. So I mean, if we're saying big deal, no big deal, her going to the Aces, I'm going to say no big deal just because I thought she was going to be able to get something in the NBA. I'd like to see her be able to make the jump to the NBA as a head coach. It'd be tremendous. Yeah, the way I see it, if you're under Popovich that long, one of the best NBA coaches of all time, not gonna say the best, but one of, I think you're more than qualified to be able to move on to bigger things in that same league in the NBA.
Well, finally, guys, and sticking with the NBA, I'm not sure if you saw this one instance with Knicks power forward Julius Randle, but he's been in a bit of a cold spell lately. He had a good game once, like a week or two ago, and as the fans mocked, as the fans were starting to cheer, and if there was mocking involved in terms of their sarcastic cheering, Randle directed a thumbs down to Knicks fans. And it was in light of his frustration with their criticism of him. The whole back and forth of Julius Randle and Knicks fans. Ben, we'll start with you. Is that a big deal or no big deal?
I'm going to go with no big deal as well. We saw this a few years ago with the Mets, obviously. Or was it this past summer? Might have been as recently as this past summer. Anyway, we saw them mocking the thumbs down to Mets fans whenever they get on base or whatnot. I'm going to say no big deal. I think, as much as fans get on players, I think small little things like this, players giving it back to fans, I don't have an issue with. And I don't think it should be an issue. And, it just kind of goes to show those the three sports markets of New York, Boston, and Philadelphia, right? Like Philadelphia fans, the only ones to boo a plane that successfully lands in the Philadelphia airport, right? It just goes to show how much those bases can kind of get on you if you're not performing up to their standard. But I no big deal. I think this is pretty funny. I like all of it.
Tony, I'm especially these days with social media. I mean, athletes and people of public prominence, they're just targets for such criticism. And I personally think if you dish it out, you should be able to take it as well. And yeah, sure, three guys like us are paying good money to see these players play, and a lot of people are saying that you should not go back at the fans who chirp at you. Where do you stand on this matter?
It's a fight you're never going to win, especially in New York, right? Would this be as big a story if it wasn't happening at Madison Square Garden? I don't know. But it's a fight you're never going to win. We saw it here in Toronto when they tried the fan gate thing when the Phil Kessel,
Salute Gate, right? Wasn't that?
Salute Gate.
Yeah.
We saw that here. It just, you're never going to win that. What I notice these days, Randy, and I think athletes today are just much more thin-skinned than the athletes we were used to growing up with in the past. Like, I think of a guy like Michael Jordan who he just didn't care, right? Like he would turn around and just make a little gesture like this, or he's this tall, the guy that's blocking me, but I got him. I find athletes these days just to be a little too thin-skinned for my liking. But again, this is not a big deal. I don't mind players having some fun to a certain extent. I don't even know why they made such a story. Like I said, I think if this was happening in Indiana and it was Sabonis doing it, would it be as big of a deal?
Yeah, no, I mean, you could probably
Yeah.
think that it's that much more enhanced because it was Madison Square Garden, it was the Knicks. To your comment about Michael Jordan, I don't think Michael Jordan really put himself out there with fans. That he obviously didn't play in social media. He wasn't vocal when it came to political positions.
But social media had nothing to do with that moment when fans are booing him.
In that moment,
he's not on
sure.
Instagram when it's happening. I'm sure they all hear it. I mean, Russell Westbrook has breakdowns all the time with fans. He has a tough time handling fans as well. Like you could tell. Now, if you're saying certain things you shouldn't be saying, we've talked about this before. There are lines that you shouldn't cross, but I don't know. Thumbs down. Is it that big of a deal? It's just a fight you're never going to win. Every athlete should know that. That's one of the things you should be trained. No matter what they say to you, they are the fans. You need to take things to a certain extent. I mean, if they're telling you to, go screw your sister or something like that, all bets are off, obviously. But
you know what? You know what? And Ben, oh, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No problem.
No, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like something
go ahead, Ben,
something
please.
as simple as the thumbs down. Like, I don't see the issue. It's not like he's going into the crowd confronting a guy or anything like that. He's giving the fans the thumb down. There's no issue with that. I don't see any problem with that.
Well, you know what? And it just reminded me going into the crowd, like you said, Ben. I mean, the Boston Bruins, they went into the crowd that one time. I think it was in Madison Square Garden. If it wasn't the Garden, it was in Philly. Terry O'Reilly, do you remember that, Tony? It was like in the early to mid 70s.
Yeah, I think it was Mike Milbury was hitting a fan with his own shoe.
With his own shoe, yeah.
He ripped off the fan's shoe and just started hitting him with him or something like that.
Yeah, but you know what?
The good old days.
Yeah, I mean, when I don't know if it's comparable one to the other, but when I saw Rory McIlroy in the Ryder Cup, Europe was in the United States, and McIlroy was just giving it to American fans after he drained a really, really long putt. And then Patrick Reed came back and he halved the hole, I believe. He gave the Dikembe Mutombo figure wag. And, and before that, though, like the fans, they were getting on Rory's case, and Rory got criticized because he was, going to that level with fans. I thought it was gold. I thought it was perfect. I thought that, it was because of that I had that much more respect for McIlroy.
Yeah, those tournaments bring out real emotions in golfers. That's I don't watch a lot of golf, but those international tournaments, the Ryder Cup and what's the other one? The President's Cup?
President's Cup, that's the world.
Yeah, you see real emotion out of those players, and that's fun. And again, there's nothing wrong with pumping up, doing this. Yeah, bring it on. I think healthy chirping is fun too between fans and players if you have willing participants, and you got to be creative, of course. Sticking your thumb down at the crowd is big deal. It becomes a big deal when Stephen A. Smith, Jalen Rose, and Kendrick Perkins. They're spending the whole day on ESPN talking about it. It becomes a big deal then, right?
Sure. Yeah, perhaps.
And whatever.
Well, guys, that being said, this was a real treat. It was the first time that the three of us got together in this dynamic. Ben, I just really want to thank you so much for, the fact that we met through your podcast and the people you've interviewed, and really enjoy your company, and really hope that you join us again. Tony, you're beautiful as always. Really appreciate you both.
Love you. Hey, Ben, we'll see you at BMO.
Absolutely, can't wait, guys.
All right, take care.
They are Ben McClellan and Tony Antoniou. I'm Randy Kure. This is What's Up the Sports podcast. Hope you're doing well. Thank you so much for joining us, and we will talk to you next time.